In fact, when we say merciful love, ganun mo din siya, no? In the sense. Kay mercy is the love that we give to those sinners. In the love of God comes to us in different way. So when you see mercy, this is precisely divine love. Why? Because this is the love of God for those who sin. I remember during the visit of the Holy Father here in the Philippines, the theme is mercy and compassion. Awa at uh, awa at malasakit at awa. When we say compassion, this is the love that we have for the poor, for the needs. When we say mercy, the love we have for those who sinners. So the love that we encounter in God is a merciful love. None other, it's the redeeming love. When we see mercy, this is the love of God that saves us. So that's what mercy is all about. So you can interchange actually mercy and love in God. And it is only later on when homily you can understand that strictly speaking, merciful love can only be applied to the love of God. When we talk about mercy, the first is that we always think of forgiveness. Right? This is mercy. When we talk about forgiveness, we always think about letting go of the sin committed. I don't know if you understand Cebuano, like, but Cebuano, in Tagalog we call it pasaylo. So pasaylo is to let the things pass. Silo. When you forgive, you let it go. Let go. But forgiveness is not about letting go. It is not even about forgetting. We realize later on that forgiveness is more than the acceptance of the sins committed by the person. And from forgiveness, we move into a merciful love. We do not only let the person free from the chain because of one's committal of sin, but when we actually work for the salvation of the person and transform the moment of sin into an occasion of grace. So, for example, in committed sin, when I say, I forgive you, it's forgiveness. And then I will move and try my best to help you recover from this sin. That's what forgiveness is. But when I transform that moment of sin into an opportunity of grace, that's what mercy is all about. We can better understand it. If you attended the Easter Mass, the Easter Vigil Mass, where the priest announced the proclamation, announced uh, the resurrection with Easter exalted, there is a beautiful part there that expresses what do we mean when we say forgiveness. Let me read to you the part. This is my favorite part in the exalted. Diba? So, after the priest intones the third, Christ is the light, the priest will sing, or the altar will sing, or chant a prayer announcing the Easter. And that we call exalted. So in that exalted, you can find beautiful, a beautiful expression of what we mean when we say mercy. Let me read the part. Okay, it says, "Oh, wonder of your humble care for us," referring to the death of Jesus Christ. "Oh, wonder of your humble care for us. Oh, love, oh, charity beyond to telling. To ransom a slave, you gave away your son. To be merciful is to lose everything for the sake of the salvation of the other. Can you imagine? Jesus Christ is the only Son. He gave away the Son to ransom a slave. For example, magkasakit ang anak mo. Huwag mo lang kunin eh, magsakit ko katulong mo. Huwag mo lang kunin ang katulong mo. Anak ko na lang kayo mo. It's illogical love, di ba? You give up your most important treasure. You give up someone who is everything for you to save this nothing, a slave. That's what merciful love is. So very demanding love. And this is the what of the favorite part. It says, "Oh wonder of," it says, "Oh truly necessary sin of Adam, destroyed completely by death, Christ. Oh, how people that earn so great, so glorious a Redeemer." So when we look at the sin of Adam, it is something very bad. When you read the Old Testament, it was the moment of curse, of destruction of everything. But when you look at it in the light of the resurrection, it says, "Oh, truly necessary sin of Adam." Oh, how people. Uh, Praise God, nakasala si Adam. May ganun ang sense, di ba? At what's the call of this for us? I said, forgiveness is not only about, it's not about forgetting. Merciful love is when you go back to the moment of sinning and then you cease to let the person remember how shameful that moment was, to let the person realize that that moment was not a moment of shame, but a moment of praise. When we look at Adam in the Old Testament, we say, "You are the reason why we are today. You are the reason of our death. You are the reason of everything bad that happened to us." But when you look at it in the resurrection, under the light of the merciful God, we say, "Praise God, Adam. You have opened yourselves to the salvation of God. We encounter a beautiful Savior because of what we have done." Can you imagine when we imitate the love? We can always say that we imitate the merciful love of God. We learn to forgive. For several times, when we encounter people who committed mistakes to us, our presence becomes a confronting presence that reminds them of their sinfulness, that continuously shame them. I remember we watched movie with my mother and my father. My father is not that good. It's committed to fidelity to him up. So we look at the movies, what fidelity, sabi ng mami ko. So we look, oh, ganito talaga, ganito talaga. No, balik-balik pa, no? When we look at people who committed sin for, when we look at them, do we look at them with shame? Is our presence evoke within them their shame? Help them recall of how bad they are? You know, I wonder why the church chose the second Sunday to spare us the divine mercy Sunday. Probably one of the reasons is that we go into the reading. It's all about Thomas, the doubter Thomas. And the reading is all about Jesus showing the words of his crucifixion. There is something anomalous here. Because when you are resurrected, technically, you are already perfected. So you don't have any wounds anymore. You don't have even scars of the wounds. Perfect man when you are resurrected. But it is surprising that Jesus kept the wounds of his crucifixion while he is already resurrected. And, and the wounds became the very reason why Thomas believed that he is the Christ. Diba? And Thomas were overwhelmed with joy upon seeing the woundedness of Jesus, the Lord Jesus Christ. See, the reaction of Thomas is overwhelmed joy. Kung tayo, when probably we learn the reason of the crucifixion of the person, you will be feeling shame. No? Oh, God, the wounds, the reason of the wounds. But why is it that Thomas rejoice? Right? This is the gift of the divine mercy. Thomas has seen not his sinfulness, but the greater love of God for you. The wounds, that is the woundedness of the crucifixion, and the reason for his crucifixion is the death, and that the sin committed by humanity ceased to be a symbol of sin, but of the forgiveness of God. The mercy of God becomes now the life by which we have sinned, woundedness of Christ. Kung tayo yung may sugat, kita natin sa tao ng positive, ang mga ginawa. O sige, tingnan mo. Pagkabait ka tayo, you are the reason of Jesus has never evoked pain within the person, has never evoked guilt within the person. Instead, it evokes joy because the person felt instead of shame, he is being loved. That is why I said, strictly speaking, only God can give us diversity. You know, in the seminarist now, why you have not approached me without problem? Father, I'm ashamed because I was confident. You know, we can be ashamed of people. Ako, I might not be a good for me because instead of finding confidence in my presence, you are ashamed. Kayo, mga anak, tayo, pare, ako, do my presence evoke confidence and comfort and love when people committed mistakes, or they feel more ashamed and feel more helpless. My dear friends, as we today, as we celebrate the divine mercy of today, we are asked, number one, let us embrace the merciful love of God. The love that not only save us, but transform our occasion of sin or a moment of weaknesses to an opportunity. That is why it is pointless to blame ourselves for the mistakes we have committed in the past. Because if the Lord has forgiven them, why we should not learn to forgive others? It is pointless to blame ourselves for the difficulties we experience because we have done wrong in the past. Now remember, when we encounter the Lord will always transform the moment into something that brings about goodness to us. When we trust His love and mercy. May mga tao na, nasa pwede na ginawa ko, dapat lang to. Stop blaming. Yeah, accept your fault. At the same time, blaming yourself when you already offer it to the Lord will never give anything good to you. It will put you down. It will make you discouraged. Bagsak ka kayo, stand up and study. In as much as you have done everything, you cannot do anything about it. Di ba? When you are forgiven by your parents and your professor, stand up. Enroll again. Study more. But what mercy of God is all about. That not our weaknesses and sin, weaken us, but looking at it as an opportunity, grace. And second, we are also asked to undertake our Lord. It's difficult, very difficult to undertake because when hurt, we are hurt. Yes, we can forgive the person, but it is too much for us to transform that hurt into an opportunity of grace for the other. But that's the call of the Christian. one of my favorite songs is gonna be yung songs na nakatapos ulitin without songs or cries. It says, hide me in your wounds, but I will never leave your side. Can you imagine? We ask the Lord to, to keep us in His wounds, the wounds that we created as a person. When the pain that caused by the others to us will become the beginning of the salvation of the other. It's merciful. Lastly, one of my favorite states, siguro kasi I am also perfect of know that I am at worthy of God's love, is Saint Longinus, the one who pierced the side of Jesus. The soldier who pierced the side of Jesus so that they can be assured that Christ was already dead. So he pierced the side of Jesus. But when he pierced the side of Jesus, blood and water flows from it. And that blood and water napunta sa kanyang mata. And he has a disease on his eyes. And because of the water and blood that flows from the head Jesus that touched his eyes, he was healed. And he was converted beautifully. The wounds that he has inflicted in Christ becomes the source of your own healing. Can you imagine that now? Kung tayo masaktan, mamatay ka. But remember, the wounds that he inflicted upon Christ was used by Christ to heal. Anyway, we can be wounded, burned. We can be hurt by people. We ask the grace that may our hurt, pain, walk within us to desire to convert people to God. Because more often, people who hurt us are also people who are so I can really attest to my experience with my father. People who tend to hurt us are people are also good. Most of the people who hurt us are people who love. We remind ourselves that we never intend to hurt us. It is their own way of telling us, I need you to teach what we love. Because I have not experienced how is it really. Less na lang tayo less pero ng mga formation of the community. You know, our parents cause so much hurt to us without them knowing it because they themselves are also your classmates probably hurt you so much. Your friend hurt you so much because you do not know how is it to love. Because you have not experienced how is it to love. The mercy of God reminds us of our power to transform sinfulness into a moment of praise and beginning of good. The world is one. People are around us. The very woundedness of the upset will be retaliated with woundedness. The cycle of woundedness and violence. The mercy of God taught that the love of God is rather powerful than any earth and anything. It has a power in the beginning of healing for me. Let us all stand and together we profess our faith.